welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Ben Wolk with me here in Neyland Stadium. We got Kipp Adams back at home. We got to change the background banner because we're showing Neyland Stadium.
Leave it. Why not?
It's not a live shot or nothing, but yeah. Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Georgia wins 44-41 in overtime. Georgia coming back. Georgia snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, having its back against the wall, down 8 with about 6 minutes left and driving down. They wind up scoring on a fantastic throw from Gunnar Stockton to London Humphreys. They wind up surviving about a 43-yard field goal, nearly a walk-off. There would have been maybe 2 or 3 seconds left that Max Gilbert misses. Georgia takes advantage in overtime and somehow finds a way to win it. And I mean, the bizarreness didn't stop there with Josh McCray, who we'd hardly seen at all this season, finding a way to score. And kind of fitting, they don't say he's in, then they decide he is in, and the game's over, and Georgia wins this one 44-41 in overtime. Ben, I'm going to start with you because you're here with me. Just your reaction from one of the wildest games we've seen in quite some time from Georgia.
I'm not sure how many times I've said this over the last year, but it feels like more than I've been saying over the 10 years before it. Like, how in the world did this happen? What in the world did we just watch? You know, I think we mentioned it a couple of times throughout the game, but I almost feel like I don't remember exactly what we said during the Georgia Tech postgame podcast last year, but it feels like you might just be able to transcribe that and put that in to what we're trying to do here today, because I don't know how many times during this game I said, I just don't think Georgia's got it today, all the way up until the final moment of regulation, quite frankly. And as is the case with seemingly every Georgia game over the last year, there's plenty positive and plenty negative to be able to take away. And I think that in a game like this, in an environment like this, the way this game started, it's only fair to look towards the positive more than the negative, because it's Kirby Smart mentioned it post-game. A couple of players acknowledged it post-game. This isn't necessarily a football game that Georgia feels like it deserved to win. I know that deserved word is going to get tossed around a lot to the point where Georgia fans are going to get annoyed by hearing it. You didn't deserve to win against Tennessee. It doesn't matter. Georgia found a way, unthinkably, behind a lot of things that people were saying for the last week wouldn't be possible. Gunnar Stockton pushed the ball down the field. Georgia's offensive line, especially in pass pro, wasn't great, but they ran the football more effectively than Tennessee did in this one. And we all said all week that if Georgia runs the ball more effectively, we think that Georgia's going to win this game. Did I envision, if you just look at what Georgia did offensively, did I envision a world where Georgia would be having to win in overtime? No, I don't think that I could have said, 500 yards of total offense, Gunnar Stockton accounting for 3 touchdowns, Gunnar Stockton throwing for 300, Georgia's running game going for almost 200. All of those things add up to Georgia wins comfortably in the Tennessee game. That didn't happen, in my opinion. You can look at some of the negatives on the defensive side of the ball. I think that Josh Heupel spent an entire offseason thinking about how everyone says he can't score 17 points against Georgia. And he knows that the difference between Tennessee getting to where they are now, which is one of the better programs in college football, to over the hump as one of arguably the best team in the SEC, that they have to find a way to beat Georgia. That didn't happen in this one. Georgia wins its 9th in a row. It's 5th straight in Neyland. But I think you have to tip the cap to Josh Heupel and Joey Aguilar and Chris Brazzell, who had an unbelievable performance. You got to tip the cap to them and say, look, Georgia's defense has some issues. Georgia's going to have to figure some things up as you get Alabama coming to town in 2 weeks. But I give a lot of respect to what Heupel and Aguilar and Brazzell were able to do to create some big play explosives in the passing game that just don't happen against Georgia's defenses very often. That was the difference between what Tennessee has done against Georgia the last 4 years and why it was so competitive tonight. And so, yeah, there's plenty for us to talk about on Georgia's defensive side of the ball, but I think it tells me more about Tennessee than it does about Georgia right now.
Kipp, you got to watch this one from home. Just give us what you saw, what that was like for you, and what stood out.
None of us had Tennessee scoring over 20 points in this game, and they had 21 in the first quarter. So if any of us would have been told that, we would have went ahead and chalked this up as a loss for Georgia. If anyone said can Gunnar Stockton win a shootout on the road, I think most people would have been like, that's worst case scenario for this Georgia team. But the one thing we've learned from Gunnar Stockton is that he's raised the floor for the expectations for what he can do in this offense, because we still saw throws where like Gunnar was off on that throw. Gunnar should have kept that. There were mistakes made. Gunnar rushed and didn't step up in the pocket, didn't have the pocket presence on the fumble. But he had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and still was, an outstanding game in his first game on the road ever. And so I think with that in mind, it is really impressive that you can put up over 500 yards in a game that almost had 1,000 yards and still look back and go, yeah, Kirby's right. I think everyone in that coaching staff wants those possessions that they had where they came away with either field goal attempts or no points at all. There were drives where they left points on the board, and this shouldn't have even been close. I think Georgia had a chance to really go up by double digits in this game, and they let Tennessee get back into this game. So for all the frustrating aspects here, especially on the defensive side, Georgia didn't play its best game and beat a top 15 team on the road. And I think you're going into the bye knowing that you have things to work on, but you're also going into the bye knowing that how often does Kirby Smart preach resiliency and composure? And he got exactly that in this football game.
Yeah, I did want to point out, Kipp said we didn't get the score right, but I had Georgia by 3. I can't remember what margins y'all had in it.
4 for me.
And it certainly wasn't how I expected it to happen.
You also nailed your prediction of rushing yards for Tennessee at 140, I believe. I think you predicted them to have exactly 140 in this game, and that's what they had. It was the other aspect of the defense that I think none of us saw coming. I mean, this was trial by fire for these cornerbacks. And I think we forgot early on in this game that these cornerbacks haven't been tested, and they were tested early and often. And they did not have an answer there between Ellis Robinson and Daniel Harris. It was a game that I think, they would both like to forget, but I think that's something you have to have in this conference is you got to take your lumps and learn from it. And I think that is something that it's going to be up to Glenn Schumann and this coaching staff to make sure those guys don't lose their confidence moving forward.
There's a lot of areas of this game that I want to tackle, and we could probably be here all night trying to decipher things. But I want to talk about Georgia's final drive of regulation, the final full drive that ends with Gunnar Stockton's touchdown pass to London Humphreys. And I'll ask you to start, Ben. Just what do you feel like you learned about Gunnar Stockton and really the entire offense with that drive? They're down 8. Kirby talked about it in the post game that, they understood too that the touchdown wasn't it. They had to go make the 2-point play. That they went down there. It did take a little bit of time, I think a little longer than the coaching staff wanted, but maybe Gunnar Stockton's best throw as a Georgia Bulldog to London Humphreys, and then they get the 2-point with Zachariah Branch to tie this thing up.
I was going to say that the 2-point draw up, and I'll give a shout out to our Dogs HQ. Jake Rowe was sitting next to us, and he basically called out the whip route before it happened. So credit to him on that one. Beautiful design by Mike Bobo. Like Jordan said, you've got to get that 2-point conversion, or nobody's talking about the Gunnar Stockton to London Humphreys play. What Gunnar showed me, and Kipp said it earlier, everyone was saying you can't win in a shootout with Gunnar Stockton. Well, that's a narrative that went to die today. I don't think we can ever have that conversation again because we just watched Gunnar Stockton do it in his first road SEC game. That's not to say Georgia's going to win every shootout that it's in, and they'd like to avoid shootouts where they can, but Gunnar Stockton can do it. It's funny because I felt like you guys know I'm a contrarian at heart, and I've had to spend all offseason saying, look, Gunnar Stockton's not the same quarterback that Carson Beck is. There's things that are going to be more comfortable with Carson Beck than Gunnar Stockton. And then in a week, I had to almost flip the people that I was arguing with, saying, look, you guys are way overreacting to what you've seen from Gunnar Stockton. Like, he does have the ability to push it downfield. People have seen him do it in practice over and over again enough to know that he can make some of those deep shots when the defense is giving you what you want. We saw that on Georgia's first drive of the game. We saw that on Georgia's last drive of the game. I got to say, London Humphreys has turned into a little bit of a Tennessee killer here. Huge third down in the fourth quarter last year against Tennessee, has a big one in the fourth quarter, and then also another big one, obviously, for the game tire. And the ball from Gunner was beautiful. I think anybody who's watched Georgia football over the last year says that's only part of the equation, because you could throw a beautiful ball and you're still going to see it hit the turf. London Humphreys, after fumbling it last week, after having a close one in the first half that would have extended a drive in a key spot that ended up, I wouldn't say he dropped, but ended up hitting the turf, for him to have that moment. And as he brought up to me post-game as well, he's from Tennessee. He was at Vanderbilt. This game has a little bit of extra juice for him naturally, and it shows that, you know, he's ready to step up in key moments to do that 2 years in a row against Tennessee in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I asked London about the Tennessee factor of this, and he said, you know, he knows a lot of people that go here, and he said he really made a conscious effort not to think about it before the game. And then I think he thought about it after the game, and I think it was kind of an emotional experience for him. And yeah, you know, I think it was earlier this week someone compared Gunnar Stockton to Russell Wilson, and to me that throw down there was Russell Wilson dropping it into a bucket, and perfect throw, and then a heads up 2-point conversion. And yeah, I mean, I know that the offense was kind of hit or miss. I thought really the game started to swing on that drive to start the third quarter, where they just marched right down the field, and just, you know, I thought that was the beginning of the end for Tennessee. And to Tennessee's credit, they didn't lie down, and Georgia kind of had some rough spots, but just an unbelievable effort there at the end. And I did want to say this about that fourth, I think it was 4th and 6. It winds up being a 28-yard touchdown. Y'all just let's just think about, if that is not completed, what's the conversation? Why are we throwing for the end zone? We only need 6 yards. That was a gutsy play call by Mike Bobo. London Humphreys told us after the game that they had game planned for this play, that they had practiced it all week. And he said, when I lined up before the snap, I saw the coverage and thought there's a pretty good chance this ball's coming my way. Kudos to them for making the plays they had to make. And great catch by London. Absolutely fantastic ball from Gunner. Kipp, what did you think about that play, but also just that drive where Georgia needed 8 points and they found a way to get 8?
It was just an NFL play on both sides. And it's interesting because you go to like the page 8 to 15 of the game thread on the Junkyard. And I mean, London Humphreys was getting asked to leave and never come back, basically, because of the early drop in the game. It goes back to that resiliency, because he had the two of the biggest catches of the game, the over-the-shoulder catch. The catch down the sideline was a huge play as well. And also, I mean, I think I can't remember if it was that drive, but, you know, Bo Hewley came into the game at right tackle. I mean, that's a big thing we're going to talk about, I'm sure, as well. But the musical chairs that Georgia was rolling out there on the right side of the offensive line, and that plays into what Gunnar Stockton was having to deal with the whole game. I think it's a credit to the coaching staff that, you know, they believed the protection would be there, and also just that they knew we're going to keep this 2-point play for game on the line, having Branch in motion, and as you guys said, the whip route. I mean, that was just something that you truly understand how they prepare for every situation. They keep a play like that in their back pocket for when we need it. And everyone talks about, I mean, Mike Bobo has been the conversation obviously all day, all week, all season, but who's going to get credit for dialing up that play, for having that play in the playbook, and for the 4th down call? Just overall, you got to go to the other flip side and give him credit for what he did in this game when Georgia needed its best plays dialed up. I mean, he was the person who wrote those plays down and dialed them in. So credit to Mike Bobo. They don't win this game if he doesn't have those plays, ready to roll and having practiced them all week for them to go out and execute. I just think it was outstanding. And also just the fact that our guy Josh McCray coming in and with the game on the line, when they needed short yardage, when it just felt like they were getting nothing near the goal line, he came in and gave them the toughest yards needed in this game. And I mean, you didn't know if that was a touchdown or not, but it looked clearly like it was. And yeah, a game clincher for a guy that had 3 carries for 5 yards coming into this game.
Let's talk before we go to a break. I want to talk about the explosive pass plays that Georgia allowed and sort of get y'all's thoughts on that. I mean, Chris Brazzell had a phenomenal game. 6 receptions, 177 yards, 3 touchdowns. Joey Aguilar winds up throwing for 371 and 4 touchdowns. First quarter, 21 points and just unstoppable. Georgia, I thought, kind of settled in second quarter, and then another big play from Brazzell in the third quarter, and it kind of turns back into a shootout. I'll start with you, Ben. How much concern do you have specifically about those explosive plays they allowed? Is that something that you think is a real concern, or was it just a situation where Tennessee made some plays and Georgia just had to respond to them?
It's a great question, and I'm torn because on one hand, I do think Georgia has, and we've talked about this for a little bit now, like some uncertainty with cornerback 2. They couldn't decide today. Is Daniel Harris out there? Is Ellis Robinson out there? They're rotating things out. And throughout the whole first half, Joey Aguilar is kind of picking on whoever it was that was opposite of Dalen Everett. I also think there are just some – Janelle Aguero had an awesome game today. KJ Bolden's always sound, but there's some other questions about the other safety spot. You just don't know when it comes to communication and familiarity and all these types of things what you should totally expect from that unit. That said, when I look at this game, most of what Tennessee did from a scoreboard standpoint, at least, is what they do to teams other than Georgia. Like, it's not unfamiliar territory for Tennessee. You hit a 72-yard play to Chris Brazzell, even though there's a defensive pass interference. You hit another 56-yarder to Chris Brazzell, even though it's in good coverage. Like, that's what Tennessee does. They create big play explosives. They confuse defenses. It really was the one when Tennessee went up 35-30 that I felt was the real defensive lapse. I mean, I thought Ellis Robinson gets beat off the line of scrimmage on the first one, and I'll have to rewatch it a little bit more, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk more with some players that have, or Kirby, that will give some insights into that one later next week. But from my view, it looked like he thought he was not going to be able to recover, and so he gets to the receiver and is going to just commit a pass interference penalty, realizes that it's a little underthrown, and he actually recovered better than he thought. So he almost bailed out on full-on tackling the wide receiver, and it was just a combination of errors that resulted in a big play. Again, we talked about this with other teams playing Georgia. Can that be your blueprint to beat Georgia, just expecting that you're going to hit on sort of a wild play like that? Probably not. Chris Brazzell, Daniel Harris was perfectly in phase. In fact, for most of the time the ball was dropping down, I thought Daniel Harris is coming down with this thing. He's in better position. He's a 6'3" corner, and some way, somehow, Chris Brazzell ended up not only with the ball in his hands, but with his momentum moving forward to basically walk into the end zone. Again, great game from Chris Brazzell. Great work by Tennessee to create these offensive explosives in the passing game. I don't think other teams can rely on those types of plays being the way that you beat Kirby Smart defenses, Glenn Schumann defenses. It's just not, I don't think, completely replicable. Are there other teams that are going to be able to hit some big pass plays? Sure. Is there, looking at yourself during the bye week to make sure your defense is what you thought it was? But when Georgia really needed it, key moments, key stops, they seem to find a way to be able to do it. And, Tennessee weirdly probably rushes the ball better in this one than they have in recent years, but still only 3.7 yards per carry. I think that Georgia will take that against this Tennessee team every day of the week.
Yeah, the number I had talked about during the week was 3.8 rushing yards, so just short of that. And yeah, Ben, can you think of a team coming to town maybe soon that might be able to make some explosive plays down the field? I can't. Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I brought that up during the game. We were joking that, like, in games like this, people love to text Jordan and Kipp and I and act like we're not working during these games. And so I'm trying to have personal conversations while also having work conversations. That a lot of people saying, like, look, this is happening against Tennessee. It's going to happen against Alabama. You saw what Ryan Williams did last year. I personally think the Ryan Williams play last year was the equivalent to the unlikelihood that we saw in this Tennessee game. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying teams can't hit Georgia on these shots. We just saw it happen multiple times. But again, without Chris Brazzell, what does Tennessee look like tonight, and how much is Georgia able to win by? I think it's a much different conversation that we're having if he doesn't make what I would consider two pretty miraculous plays.
The one concern I have when we talk about those plays, one, I do think they were kind of fluky, but my biggest concern is it was multiple guys making those mistakes. I feel like if it was just one corner and it's just like, man, this is just not Ellis Robinson's day. Well, then you put Daniel Harris out there, and then Daniel Harris can't make that's where I'm sort of like, this is not a great sign that you're seeing multiple corners have some issues. And then I think Ja'Cory Thomas, there looked like there was kind of a miscommunication on, I want to say that was Tennessee's go-ahead touchdown. This was one of those games where, like, if you tried to list all the touchdowns, I'd probably leave off like 4 of them just because it was a very explosive game.
Well, we made the comment in the first half. We're like, this game is taking forever. And then I think we had the realization, it's taking forever because normally we don't watch Georgia games where 38 points are scored in, 20 minutes. It's like it slowed down the game and made it felt like that football game took forever. And I don't know if it did or if it was just so much happened that it felt like it took forever.
Kipp, what were your thoughts on those explosive plays allowed? Do you think that was just sort of a fluke going against this Tennessee offense or cause for more concern?
Well, I mean, I think Ben kind of described it pretty well. On the Ellis one, I mean, you didn't commit one way or the other to whether you're going to tackle or make a play in the ball. And when you do that, I mean, you get stuck in no man's land. But my opinion of this, and I actually kind of caught myself after I posted my game balls and mentioned this, that Georgia's cornerbacks should have had more help from the safety position in coverage. There should have been help on that play from a safety. And I think Tennessee's pace and the fact that they have explosive wide receivers put Georgia's safeties, especially Jonel Guerrero, we talked about like the question mark. How is he going to do in coverage when he's not at the line of scrimmage? We saw what he can do when he's running up to make a tackle, and square and take down the ball carrier. He did an outstanding job of that in this game. But when you're asking your safeties to help out and you're going up against the kind of pace against Tennessee, you get put and strained into situations that you're not used to, that you probably didn't simulate enough in practice. And they got exposed a little bit like that because, again, I think that we have really not seen a Kirby Smart or Glenn Truman secondary play as much zone as they played in this game. And I think that kind of tells me a lot about where Kirby Smart kind of felt as far as their comfort level with their cornerbacks and their DBs in general going in this game. We also don't know if we're going to face another offense that plays exactly like Tennessee does this season. So I think it's kind of a middle ground of where, yeah, they need to play a lot better if they're going to accomplish their goals. But this may be the most explosive pass, attack they're going to see. I don't know. It's kind of in the middle. And then at the other time, my biggest question is, you weren't able to get home from the edge rusher position. There wasn't pressure. And the defensive line, you're getting gassed. That's playing the Tennessee strength, again, with the pacing. But still, you got to put some pressure on Joey Aguilar, not just let him pick you apart and find those explosive plays. Those plays have to develop. They have to get separation. And so I do think that is probably my bigger question mark is, where is this pressure going to come from? Because you did not see it today. Chris Cole got home and Christian Miller made a nice play. But overall, the defensive front was mostly absent in this football game.
Yeah, Chris Cole had the only sack. I saw Fox Mulder, I think on YouTube, was asking if there were any sacks. He had one. You mentioned Christian Miller making a play. I remember Nnamdi Ogboko had a really good pressure at one point. But that to me was sort of a glaring thing from this game, struggling there. Did you want to add something?
Well, I'll just add to that. We're now 3 games into the season. Georgia has 4 sacks. They all have come from the middle linebacker position. I think that if Georgia is going to generate sack creation in this season, it's going to have to come from that position group. I think Raylan Wilson and Chris Cole are probably 2 of the better pass rushers on this team. And I think Chris Cole in particular is probably going to have to be your guy when it comes to generating pressure on third down, because you're just not seeing it that way with the other defensive linemen and outside linebackers.
Kind of rapid fire before we go to a break. I was very intrigued by the way early in this game, Georgia rotated a ton of defenders, and Kirby Smart talked about this a little after the game. and was saying that, that they understood it was going to be hot, and he was just kind of talking about the different rotation too on the offensive line, which Kipp mentioned earlier. I am fascinated by what they do after this coming week. Now, that will be another opportunity for Juan Gaston and Ernest Green to try to get 100%. Thought Ernest Green struggled, and I think that he eventually had to come out and did not go back in. Fascinated to see what they do there. Elsewhere, I'm trying to think, there was some other stuff. It was 3 points that I think are very easy to forget about in this game. I thought it was such a big decision by Georgia, deciding right before half. I think it was like a minute 40 before halftime. They kick a field goal rather than go for it on like the 4, and they're counting on their defense to get a stop, not let Tennessee go down and score. Defense comes through, and 3 points winds up mattering in the end when Georgia's able to tie it up. So, that was a very conservative call in that moment, but, I thought it had a chance to pay off, and it did wind up mattering. Elsewhere, we shouted out Jonell Aguero. Trying to think.
Peyton Woodring deserves a shout out as well. In a game like this, when Tennessee's got a great kicker and he misses one wide right, and in a spot where you got to make it, right? Like everything Tennessee's been through, he misses it. Peyton Woodring is so good that we haven't lived in a world for 3 years, basically. What would it be like if Georgia's going to miss a kick here? And in a game like this, when you've got to make all 3 of them in a tough environment, look, I don't want to be over the top and say Peyton Woodring is the best Georgia kicker ever, but I would be hard pressed to pick anyone if I needed to make a kick over Peyton Woodring. That's just how sound at his job that I feel like he is. And in games like this one on the road, when you go 3 for 3, you hit a 48 yarder. You got to be grateful for what you've got with Peyton Woodring right now.
Anything else you want to add from this? Kipp, what about you? Just random, rapid fire, anything else from this game before we go to a break?
I still can't believe that, Dontrell Glover joined this team in the summer and played over 70 snaps at right guard in this game. I know that they tried to get Juan Gaston in the game for a couple series. He got banged up again and had to leave, but it's pretty incredible. I mean, that they're both true freshmen. Georgia relied on 2 true freshmen at right guard in this game, and it seems like they found a combination. I think maybe when Bo Hewley came in, if he can be consistent there, we'll see if he can be like a part of the mix going into that Alabama game. They have to find a combination. But I think Glover overall, that's your 3rd college game. You're on the road. You're just playing 70-plus snaps. And I think for the most part, did pretty well in that game. And mentioning Woodring, also just Brett Thorson. I mean, we didn't know when he was going to come back, but he came into this game and, pinned him inside the 20 a couple times. Nothing was returned. You're back to over 47 yards a kick in this game, I think, 47-7. That's vintage Brett Thorson. So you have that weapon in the game. You're getting, positive yards in the return game out of Zachariah Branch and Sokovi White-Helton. Also, shout out to perimeter blocking for being back, because that screen to Zachariah Branch, the blocks in that play were a thing of beauty. And they got to get him the ball more. You got to find a way. He's obviously your most electric playmaker, making something out of nothing. And it's still just, I'm curious with Noah Thomas. I mean, we all fall camp. He was dominating, basically a nothing burger in this game. You're using Colby Young a lot. He's making big plays, but it just seems like Noah Thomas hasn't been a part of this offense through 3 games, and I have no reason why. I do not understand that one, and you're going to need every weapon you can get. There's obviously a lot of football still to be played, but that's just a curious aspect of this team through, the first quarter of the regular season.
Dylan Bell and Lawson Lucky, fantastic blocking on that Zachariah Branch touchdown. The only other thing two quick things. Kirby Smart after the game saying, quote, "I don't think we should have won that game. I don't think they outplayed us in a lot of ways, but that's the way it goes." I mean, to me, this game, there were 2 things that came to mind for me. One, the Peach Bowl, because of the way the Peach Bowl ended, albeit that was a game-winning kick. the game was not tied. I thought a lot of that, especially because both situations, it really didn't cross my mind that the kicker may miss. I was just like, yeah, he's going to hit this kick and we're going to, move on. Georgia's going to have like 3 seconds. 2, and I'll start with you, Ben. I do want Kipp's opinion on this too. To me, this reminded me of so many Alabama games at the height of the Nick Saban era where they would be playing somebody like a Tennessee and you're following along and you're like, oh, they're dead. They can't win this game. Like, they have run out. Their luck, there's no way. And Alabama would find a way to win. I swear, just watching the way that game played out, especially in the last 6 minutes, to me, this felt like quintessential Alabama. Georgia just finding a way to win and finding a way to break Tennessee's heart.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think Tennessee's got to feel snake bitten in this one at this point. They have only beaten a Kirby Smart team one time since 2006, and it required a Hail Mary in Sanford Stadium to be able to do it. So Kirby made the comment, he was asked about it post-game, like, you won 9 in a row here, or 5 in a row here, 9 in a row total. Like, how do you keep coming into Neyland? And he answered it humbly and then also acknowledged, like, I think it was even more than that if we're dating back to Alabama. And, like, something about Kirby Smart in this building against Tennessee, it's just they haven't been able to find a way against him for coming up on 20 years now outside of the Hail Mary game. And so, yeah, I don't know what it must feel like to be a Tennessee fan right now, because this one has to hurt about as bad as any that they've had probably since like the Terrence Cody blocked kick game, maybe. Like, I can't think of how many more painful ones they've had than this one since then.
Yeah, I'll start reading the text from my side of the family that's Tennessee fans. I'll let you know. There's a few that come to mind, but no, and 2, Kirby, with all those wins, he did mention, like, oh, I didn't feel like we should have won this game, but he was like, yeah, about 9 or 10 years ago, they won one that I didn't think they should win, which was the only, yeah, I think you came in right after that. Like, the only time Tennessee's ever beat him, he's like, yeah, and they shouldn't have won that one either. Like, it's just unbelievable. Kip, do you see that comparison I'm making with Alabama, where it's just like, Tennessee did almost everything it could do to win this game, but Georgia just finds a way.
Yeah, that Terrence Cody kick, that was the Lane Kiffin year, right? So, yeah, I think the one thing I could say is that they did not win these games during the Mark Richt era again. That's kind of just the key, the stark difference here with this coaching staff. But it's a reminder that every single little play matters in games like this. And, I mean, every single decision, like you guys talked about with the going for the field goal. I mean, you need to scratch and claw your way whenever you're facing adversity. When you're making mistakes, it's like you never know which decision is going to be the one, because I think it's a culmination of all of them. And that was something that just never really came together during the Richt era. And it is something that, when you think about how, how much Kirby Smart gets particular about every single aspect of how his program is run, that's where the culmination of all that you see in a situation like this, where he makes sure that they're prepared when they have to come down 21-7, when things aren't going their way, whenever the refs are not calling push-offs, on Daniel Harris near the goal line. When you're not getting the calls, you have to take matters into your own hands. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the drive to start the third quarter kind of reminded you. I mean, they took over 7 minutes off the clock on that drive. It was 14 plays. I just think having multiple drives where you get points on 14-yard drives is just something that gives you confidence that you can win in any sort of fashion.
I did want to tell a quick story from post-game. So we got done with Kirby Smart and players, and I walked out onto the field. And as I walked out onto the field, there were about 7 or 8 Tennessee fans standing right at the 25 on the left hash, all going through the leg motions, practicing the Max Gilbert missed field goal, seemingly dumbfounded that it found a way to sneak itself right. So I figured I did want to tell that little anecdote for the Georgia fans that wanted to, have some visualization of the Tennessee fans and their struggle down on the field after the game.
You can't spell salt in the wound without UT. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Before we do that, I do want to say, hey, if you want to be a part of our podcast, go check out the SpeakPipe link It's in this podcast. If you look at the description, also if you're watching this on YouTube, I've dropped it on YouTube as well as Facebook. We want to hear your voicemails. We want to hear what you liked, what you didn't like, your questions for us. If we get enough of them, we will continue. We will start incorporating them into these podcasts, but it's up to you guys. We need you guys to take part to make it happen. I think it can be a fun way to interact with the fans, and we hope you'll take advantage. Take a quick break. We're not going to have a ton left, but I do want to talk about some of the other stuff around the country as week 3 draws closer to its end.
And whatever you do, don't send a voicemail calling Jordan nasty names, telling Jordan that he messed something up. Like, please don't do that.
We'll try to make this a little quicker than usual just because Ben and I need to get the hell out of Neyland Stadium before too long. But I want to talk about some of the other scores around the country. And, Kipp, I am going to lean on you just a little bit as we go through this because, honestly, we didn't get to watch a ton of different games because of how long this Georgia game took. Georgia Tech beating Clemson 24-21. Huge win for Georgia Tech. I think that Georgia Tech's got a chance to kind of be the sleeper in the ACC. And you got to wonder what this means next for Clemson. Looking through some of the other scores from today, West Virginia upsetting Pittsburgh in overtime. Thought that was really interesting. Miami dispatching of South Florida 49-12.
Miami's legit.
Miami is legit. So Texas 27-10 over UTEP. Arch Manning did not look good. Not trending in the right direction there. Looking at some of the scores as we are recording this. Arkansas hanging tough with Ole Miss, 41-35 with about 5 minutes left. Old Dominion getting ready to clear out Brent Pry. He is not long for that Virginia Tech job. LSU leading 20-10 over Florida with nearly to the fourth quarter in that game. Notre Dame and Texas A&M going back and forth. Vanderbilt 21-7 right now, early fourth quarter. That is a big opportunity for Vanderbilt there. Tulane leading Duke 24-16. Any other scores, anything else, Kipp, that we missed from today?
I'm just that Vanderbilt game's kind of sticking out to me. Just Lenore Sellers, a lot of people talking about him as the best quarterback in the conference, and right now he's got 94 yards and a pick, and it's the fourth quarter. So I think they brought in Luke Doty in that game, but he did not perform well. Given the chance, given the spotlight, a primetime game, the Gamecocks seem to be kind of sputtering out. I thought this was, the year that they would be maybe taking a step, trying to become a contender, and they got to make something happen quickly in that game. And yeah, the earlier game, I think, is Clemson done? I mean, I think it's not over, but it feels like this is a turning point for that program because I think all the talk preseason and a lot of it from Dabo was just about, he was cocky about this team. And Kate Klubnik, myself included, he is not who we said he would be so far. I think right now he just hasn't looked the part. He's basically a 50-50 completion percentage guy, and he's thrown 3 picks. So I think it's kind of a resetting of expectations for them, but you just can't have something like this because this was supposed to be the year, and it just looks like they're on the outside looking in, only 3 games in.
Yeah, things not going well really for the whole state of South Carolina. And I was talking to my dad about this earlier in the week. Maybe having Mike Shula as your offensive coordinator in 2025, not the move. That's just my thought. Huge win for Tech. Interested to see how some of these later games wind up playing out. In fact, Arkansas is playing Ole Miss so tight. I kind of think says more about Ole Miss than anything. I don't know that this Ole Miss team is really all that good. Ben, any takeaways from some of these other scores? Again, Ben and I really haven't gotten to see a lot of this action just because of how the Georgia game played out.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm doing is just scoreboard watching, box score watching. I see DJ Lagway's got 3 picks right now. It's possible he's just not what they thought he was. I mean, 12 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year, and now he's got like 4 or 5 picks through 3 weeks. Like, I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily the guy they thought he was. Vanderbilt, I said earlier, Miami's legit. I think Miami's legit. I'm not saying I think that Vanderbilt is legit, but they are on legit watch. If they're up 21-7, what they did in the second half against – now, Virginia Tech's bad, as we've learned today. But in the second half against Virginia Tech last week, Vanderbilt scores a touchdown on every single offensive possession and holds Virginia Tech to a 3-and-out on every single defensive possession for an entire second half. Crazy. Vanderbilt – I would not want Vanderbilt on my football schedule. Let's put it that way. Kipp, is it true that Arch Manning was booed off the field at halftime?
There were definitely boos, and his performance was boo-worthy. I think he looked good running the ball. I'll say that much. I mean, it kind of reminds. I mean, it's just back to his high school film. It's like that's what he does better, and I think, he just can't. His only defect is the forward pass at this point. I think is his Billy scouting report right now, because he had missed like double-digit throws. It was like 11.
He had 9 incompletions in a row.
Yeah, okay, I was close, and one was a.
It might have been more than that. I just know at one point it was not.
Yeah, I know it. I thought it got to double digits. I know one of them was interception, and then they started calling for, for him to do better and saying some things there. But I think the quarterback hierarchy in the conference definitely needs to be shifting. And I mean, I know Austin Simmons was hurt, but it looks like Trinidad Chambliss is performing pretty well for Ole Miss, so they're going to have some question marks there. Lenore Sailor's injured as well. I talked about him before, so I think it's interesting because right now, if you're Georgia, you got to feel pretty good about your quarterback play. When you're looking across the conference today, watching some of these performances, you got one of the better, players at the most important position in college football right now. So it could be worse, guys. That is the vantage point I take looking at these other games. And especially watching, the Florida offense just completely stumble and watching other guys get banged up. Also, I guess, I don't know if we brought it up, but like the Hail Mary before the half, bringing in Puglisi there, that was an interesting – huh?
The sacrificial lamb.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a maybe I have learned. It still resulted in a pick. It was still probably not the best decision. Maybe they go the way the NBA is. If you're going to chuck it up right before half, maybe that shouldn't count as a interception. That might be something to consider, but because it's quarterbacks' passer ratings plummet on that play in every game. But I thought that was an interesting, just kind of a different way of looking at it, and maybe Kirby Smart learned his lesson, but also, I think maybe he trusts Ryan Puglisi to get the ball there. I don't know. That's just something we'll see if we see something like that again later this season.
I'm also going to throw Illinois on legit watch. I don't know if they're there yet, but 38-0, I know it's Western Michigan, but they are doing the things that you want to see from teams. And when your brand is Illinois football and you're doing those types of things, it makes me raise my eyebrows a little bit. I'm also going to make the Georgia Tech Clemson game. I know everyone's going to make it about Clemson. I'm not saying it's not partially about Clemson. Brent Key, man, great football coach. They do not lose in Bobby Dodd Stadium. Another situation where Georgia might be a little bit happy that they caught some scheduling luck and are going to Mercedes-Benz this year against Georgia Tech instead of Bobby Dodd, because nobody goes into Bobby Dodd and wins games these days.
Shout out Oklahoma taking it on the road in Philadelphia and beating Temple 42-3. I still love that was a road game. All right, final thoughts from here. I'll make it quick. I wanted to shout out one of the comments because I thought it summed it up really well. Timothy E. Moore, a win is a win. This was one of those games where Georgia very easily could have come out of here with a loss. Situations where they had their back against the wall, they found a way. That's all that really matters. Only other thing I got, we are recording in what I think is the PA announcer area, and to my right is the names of the holder, the snapper, the holder, and the kicker Brady to snap, Ross to hold, Gilbert to attempt, and my goodness, is that
Oh my gosh, I'm not even seeing that. I wish, you know what, I'm gonna turn this around for people that are watching on YouTube. I don't know if you guys can see it. Kip, can you see it? Probably not. This is probably terrible podcasting right here, but
I see it.
Just Brady to snap, Ross to hold, Gilbert to attempt, wide right.
all right, Kip, what you got?
I mean, I can't imagine what this would have been like. Just imagine how the call would have been if Larry Munson were calling the game. It would have been one for the ages. But final thought is I was just Oklahoma's defensive lineman suspended for the first half. Our Mason Thomas, their sack leader, suspended. He got a targeting injection. But just thinking about that game, the Jackson Arnold returning to Oklahoma, that's one that I'm just kind of the early look to next week. I think that's going to be an entertaining game because, I mean, these teams kind of look like they got some juice. For the most part, Auburn's offense seems to be performing pretty well. I mean, again, a 3-0 start, that's what you hope for them. But I think that's going to be just, one of the more entertaining storylines next week.
We're going to wrap up the episode right there. Thanks so much to Kip for popping on. Thanks for Ben for hanging around here. I think we've got either a Taco Bell or a Waffle House in our future very soon. But thank you to all of you who watched this live, everyone who's watching or listening to this after the fact. Subscribe to Dogs 24/7. A lot of content out of this game, and I can go ahead and tell you there's going to be a lot more on Sunday. Again, go to our SpeakPipe, speakpipe.com/Dogs247. Leave us a voicemail, what you liked, what you didn't like, thoughts, questions, concerns, complaints. We want to talk about it on our next podcast, but we need you guys to take part in that. Go subscribe to our YouTube. We're going to have all the interviews from the post game. Go check out our TikTok. I know we'll have stuff out of that on there as well. And just get ready because we got the bye week. We'll actually get to watch a little bit more football on Saturday, and then we'll get ready for Georgia at Alabama. It's going to be here before you know it. So we will end the episode right there. For Ben Wolk and Kipp Adams, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.